Welcome to Let's Play Every Day, your daily source for deep dives on the sports talkers of the day. And now, here's your host, Tim McNabb.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Let's Play Every Day, the show where we assemble influencers from the Minnesota sports, entertainment, and business communities, and we go deep on the sports talkers of the day. I want to start by giving a quick shout out to our sponsor, Northern Lids, specializing in patch-style, custom-hand stitch caps and knit hats. Check them out at northernlids.com. And I just want to say this. If they can make this old dog look this good, come on. What can they do for you? northernlids.com. We are joined by, making her debut on Let's Play Every Day, Heather Rule. Heather works for the Minnesota Twins as a member of their social media team. She's also an accomplished sports journalist of note, having created content for Sports Engine, MN Hockey Mag, and the Star Tribune, among others. Heather, welcome. C. Willie Miles, the pride of Mobile, Alabama, America's everyday comedian, former college football player and coach, and noted business speaker. And because I simply can't go a single day without him, Kevin Gorg, a.k.a. Gorgomatic, reporter for Bally Sports, longtime tip sheet provider, and track announcer at Canterbury Park, and the star of another Let's Play Sport Network program that we just streamed within the last hour called It's Gorgomatic. So go to lpsn.com and check out It's Gorgomatic. He gives us long-term prop plays on the upcoming NFL season. You do not want to miss it. And if I may, he went 4-0-1 in his prognostications last week. So that's what we're talking about. Leverage the mind of Kevin Gorg, a.k.a. Gorgomatic. It's not automatic, folks. It's better. It's Gorgomatic.
It's Gorgomatic.
There you go. All right. The theme of today's program, ladies and gentlemen, is what do I know and when didn't I know it? As we all know by now, the Gopher football team did lose running back Mo Ibrahim, or as Willie calls him, Mo Money. He was lost for a season-ending leg injury. He had successful surgery yesterday. We wish him the best. Now here come your Minnesota Vikings, who opened the regular season play on Sunday in Cincinnati. As we said on yesterday's show, you know that in the sport of football, you're going to lose people. It is part of the game. Heather Rule, here we go. In your opinion, who is the one player the Minnesota Vikings cannot lose in the season ahead?
It's got to be Dalvin Cook, right? The numbers he put up last year, just career high numbers for him with, was it 1,500 rushing yards? And, no one comes close to that. I mean, he's it. He's the guy. It's kind of, when I was watching the Gopher game, we talk about Mo Ibrahim. It's like, is there replacing him now for the season? And with Dalvin Cook, I kind of feel like it's that same way, right? Like you always have a guy, you have running backs, you have wide receivers, but there's always kind of that one go-to guy, and he's it. So I think it would be very interesting to see, what happens as far as not only injuries, but I know the COVID limitations and restrictions and rules they put in place this year. If he were to go out, that would be a big hole to fill.
Huge. Willie Miles, I mean, Heather nailed it. I mean, you've got a guy who not only runs the ball as good or better than anybody in the game today, his pass pro is really underrated, and he catches the ball well out of the backfield. Is he your guy?
Absolutely. You cannot lose him. That again, I always think he's like Mo. I mean, he's the motor. I mean, look, yes, I'm just going to go with yes.
Kevin Gorg, I'll let you weigh in on this one.
Well, here's the deal. He's their best player. I agree with what both you guys have said. He is the motor. He's the superstar of that offense. But what I'll say is this. The difference being is if you lose Dalvin Cook, you have Alexander Madison, who, by the way, if there was no Dalvin Cook, would still be a top 15 running back in the National Football League. The numbers he puts up when he's in there are comparable to that middle-of-the-road running back. So your running game is still going to be okay. Tell me who and what happens if Kirk Cousins is out, whether it's COVID or an injury. They don't have a backup quarterback. You can shut the season down. This team can still win 9 or 10 games if Dalvin Cook is out. I don't think they win 3 games if Cousins is out. And Timmy knows this. I don't think Kirk Cousins is the next Tom Brady. He, again, is a middle-of-the-road guy, but they have nothing behind him. Season over, so I'll say Cousins.
This isn't a team with a bad plan when it comes to quarterback. This is a team with no plan when it comes to the backup quarterback. This is not good. KG, for a team that hoards late-round draft picks the way squirrels hoard nuts, couldn't you make a case that the Minnesota Vikings shouldn't have the depth concerns that they do, not just at quarterback, but almost across the board?
Well, Timmy, it's one thing to have the draft picks, and it's no different than in any other sport. Having picks is a position of leverage, but if you don't hit the home run with some of those picks, and that's the hard part. I mean, first round picks, it's a lot easier to get that player into a position where they're an everyday starter at any position in the National Football League. But now when you get into the later rounds, the odds really start to get a little more long. And I think the problem is for Minnesota is they've had a lot of those picks, but they haven't panned out. And you've got players that have gone the other way, players that have left the league. We had the sad situation with Gladney in the offseason with the legality there. So the depth of this team now isn't what it probably should be because they haven't hit those home runs. And now we're in a position now into this season where the head coach in Zimmer and Spielman, the GM, are probably on the hot seat. If they aren't a playoff team, if they don't have a great bounce back season, I think the coach and the GM are certainly up for debate whether they're going to return. And I like both a lot. I think they both have shown the potential to put this team in a position to make a run. We've seen this team win a playoff game as recent as a couple years ago at New Orleans. But to your point, if you look at the offensive line, not a lot of depth. If you look at the defensive secondary, not a lot of depth. And at the most important position in the game, how do you not have a backup quarterback right now? That's what baffles me.
Yeah, unbelievable. Heather, I pushed you into the deep water right away because, well, that's the kind of guy that I am. But when the Vikings started to add all those defensive players in the offseason, I started to get really excited. I started to think about Zimmer coaching them, and we added these 7 or 8 guys, and the 2 guys that sat out last year or missed the action because they were injured. And, man, we scored points last year, and I started to get excited. Heather Rule at 58, it's the Minnesota Vikings. Shouldn't I know better by now?
You really should. When was the last Super Bowl appearance?
You weren't alive.
77.
Yeah. Yes, I was not alive. No.
I was. I watched them all.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like every year there's just, I mean, maybe not every year, but it seems like there's always all this optimism around the team. And okay, this is going to be our year. And this is, they've got good players, XYZ this year. And this is, let's get excited. And there's always something, even if they have a good year, they get to the playoffs, they get, the other night, Fox 9 was rerunning the Minneapolis Miracle game. And I just keep thinking about that game. Like it was great, but what did it lead to? They did absolutely nothing the next game in Philly.
Yeah.
I remember that game. I think they went opening drive and they scored a touchdown, and Joe Buck was calling the game. He's like, "Oh, what a start. And then they did absolutely nothing. Just didn't even show up the rest of the game. So there's that. There's, so many things. Gary Anderson missing the field goal and,
the laundry list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just, it's so hard because there's always something that makes them just Minnesota sports about it.
God.
So
they are the poster child for Minnesota sports. Hey, Willie, this team was not just bad on special teams last year. They were historically, epically bad. We are days away from the regular season opener at Cincinnati, if I may. We have a new kicker. We have a new punter. We have a new kick returner. I have no idea, and I don't think they know who's going to return punts this weekend. Last year's special teams coordinator, Marwan Malouf, was given the exit papers. Who did they get to replace him? The assistant special teams coach, a guy who's been like 7 different assistant guys, never been a coordinator at any other position, to take over this group that was epically bad last season. To quote the late, great Vince Lombardi, Willie Miles, what the heck is going on out there?
Well, you just answered your own question, my friend. You just gave you gave the key to a special team to a guy who was taking orders from the guy who got fired. He was basically the guy putting the plan in action. So I just don't think that Minnesota Vikings has ever had a real. I miss Cordell Patterson. That's who I miss. That guy was a good, hard running. You thought you always had a chance with him. Don't get me wrong. I love Cheryl. That was his thing. He was really good.
Steady.
But I also loved Leo Lewis in the '80s. You know, those guys, they were very good at their craft. But the Vikings has never had a special teams program where that you felt threatened by them. You know what I mean? In terms of sense that they could set up a punt return or a kick return for a touchdown. Like you just
historically, if you go back to the 70s, the Bud Grant era, you know, and there's only a few of us that go back that far. That's one of the areas where they actually excelled. Matt Blair and Alan Page blocking kicks, Bobby Bryant coming off the edge, and
right.
You know, the Vikings it seemed like we were playing the Lions like every year, and the Lions always had a kick to beat us, and you're like, they're not going to make it. They never do, and the Vikings would escape. But ever since that era, you're right, we just haven't had that. KG, with all that said, can you still make a case for this Vikings team not only being a playoff team this year, but maybe unseating the Packers in the NFC North?
Oh, there's a case to be made. And the case for Vikings fans out there is it starts with Cousins. He isn't vaccinated, so he can't get COVID, and he's got to stay healthy. And he's got an offensive line that right now is not healthy and not very deep. So start with Cousins, work your way out. You've got a top 5 running back in Dalvin Cook, maybe the best back in football, in my opinion. And as far as receivers go, with Thielen and Justin Jefferson, maybe the best 1-2 punch at that position. Now, you had a great upcoming, young star in the making in Irv Smith Jr. You lost him to injury, but to the Vikings' credit and to Spielman's credit, they went out and got Herndon from the Jets. So now you've got Conklin and Herndon, so that position is at least stabilized.
Stable.
Where they're going to win or lose this year, it's going to be 2 places, the offensive line and the defensive secondary. If they can be better in both those areas, this is a team that under Zimmer every other year has found a way to be right there. Briefly back to special teams, because I'm like you, Timmy. I don't know where they're going in that area of the field. The irony for me as a Vikings fan is a couple years ago they finally got it right. They spent a higher draft pick on Daniel Carlson, and then Mike Zimmer panicked after a bad game at Green Bay, and this kid's turned out to be who they thought he was going to be. He's a stud in Vegas with the Raiders. They'd kill for this kid right now. I don't know who the hell their kicker is, and I'm a pretty avid football fan, so they can win the division, they can get in the playoffs, but I wouldn't bet on it.
So you're telling me we have a chance. I'll leave it right there. Next topic, Heather, I do not want to put your employment in jeopardy with the Minnesota Twins, but I am guessing that you've probably watched more Twins baseball this season than any of the 3 of us. Was there ever a time when you were watching them play back in April and May, and he was scuffling from both sides of the plate, that you ever foresaw the season that Jorge Polanco is having?
No. I think back at that time too, no one really saw what was coming with the team in general either. But I think at that time there was some concern too that maybe there was that nagging ankle injury that he had in the past and he had surgery on. And so that was kind of a concern, thinking, okay, is this going to be something that's just going to linger and really make it tough for him? But as it's turned out, and I was just looking last night at the whole laundry list of players that have been on the IL this year, he's turned out to be one of the most durable guys they have. I think he's one of the only players that has not spent any time on the IL. He's plays nearly every day. And so that's been really important this year when you have so many guys that have gone down. They had COVID, a COVID outbreak early in the season too. And so for him to really kind of just be this consistent, durable guy he's kind of just quietly turned into the MVP of the team. He's not this flashy player. I mean, he has, all these home runs, career high, 27 home runs. He's close to a record for a switch hitter for the Twins if he hits 30, I think. And it's just, he's not the most, it's funny too, even his celebrations, we get photos and stuff that we post, and it's always kind of the same thing, his same pose when he rounds third base, and he's not the most emotional, exciting guy. So it's always kind of the same old, but he's just consistently been a good player for them. And then you look at what he's done with their walk-off wins too. I think he has 5 of the 9 walk-offs he's responsible for, which is also, amazing. Kind of amazing, because you look at that list every year and it's usually, different players that are contributing. But to see what he's been able to do, as a switch hitter, and solid defensively in the field too. They've moved him over pretty much to second base, but he still can play short as well. And I think he's definitely been the MVP of the team this year. And especially in a year like this, where you look so much more at individual performances and what guys are doing or good games they're having, because, those are kind of the bright spots you take away. And I think for him to have this good year, especially when other guys are maybe struggling a little bit, it's been really fun to watch.
You got to find your positive somewhere. Willie, the other day, Polanco became just the 7th Twin to register 4 extra base hits in a single game, joining the likes of Kirby Puckett and Tony Oliva. Polanco was right in the middle of a very team-friendly deal, and as Heather pointed out, for the first time in forever, we're not talking about off-season ankle surgery. Tell me why the Twins should not trade this guy in the off-season for pitching help.
He's the best player on your team. No.
Buxton?
Yeah. I don't – look, I think – no. I said our problem with the Twins has always been this. Either we keep a player too long or we get rid of them too soon. That's my theory on this deal. Now, I think don't keep them. That's how I look at it. I'm not going to get into the whole numbers games because
sure,
Heather just did a great job with that. But I'm just saying he's a good player, and I think you hang on to him. I think you got to go out and find pitching. What are you going to get? Who are you looking for pitching? I think you trade the whole pitching staff. And just
you're not going to get anything for the pitching staff. I mean, I'm thinking right now, he and Kepler, Kevin Gorg, these are 2 guys that signed 2 very friendly deals for the team. Kepler's still sort of scuffling, but man, Polanco's numbers. I mean, if you're going to sell high, or are you going to move him back to shortstop? Because Andrelton Simmons is not going to be with this team next year.
Yeah, Simmons is out, but I'm with Willie. I mean, you got a guy right now that is peaking, and I think that there is the real potential that, he and Buxton can provide some stability, and I think you bring them both back. And I think the fan base is already upset about the fact that Barrios is gone. Before this season, this was a team that they were talking about being a playoff team again, a team that can make a run. So I think you got to be real careful with dancing that line, and you've got money to spend. And I know that that's not been the way the poll ads have gone, but I think you bring back Polanco for sure. And then you've got the 3-man rotation with Arise, Gordon, and Polanco. All 3 of these guys can play both sides of the middle of the infield. And now you can see what Gordon has. You can put him in a couple of different spots, and you can spell these guys. You've got some versatility there, and I love what Luis Arise brings that lineup. So those 3 guys I'm hanging on to. If you want to move a guy, I still think Max Kepler's a guy you can move because he has shown that potential, and you're not trading him right now when he's finally shown that he can be an everyday superstar, which I believe Polanco can be. Kepler, I'd be a little more open to moving, but I'm absolutely with Willie on this one. You hang on to Polanco.
Heather, notice how I stayed away from asking you about Twins trade recommendations since you got to go there and potentially deal with those guys. I've been in the locker room after I've advocated for people to be traded, so I know that situation can go south in a hurry. Okay, final topic, and I'm going someplace this morning. The National Women's Hockey League, which has struggled with a number of issues, not the least of which has been brand recognition, is no more, if you even knew it existed in the first place. The NWHL is gone, replaced by the Premier Hockey Federation. North America's first women's professional hockey league to pay their players a salary is adopting a new name as part of a rebranding to reflect sweeping changes made to its management structure, coupled with an influx of private ownership as it enters its 7th season. The decision to change names also provided the 6-team federation an opportunity to make a social statement by removing gender from its title. Here's your quote. "We felt it's time for our players to be defined by their talent and skill," said League Commissioner Ty Tuminia. "It's not like they're female phenomenal. You're just phenomenal." In billing the change, "No labels, no limits," the Federation also focused on its new title by being more inclusive by respecting the various gender identities of its players and fan base. Heather Rule, there is a lot here and a lot more to this story. Having covered the Minnesota Whitecaps, who are part of what is now the Premier Hockey Federation. Can I ask for your initial thoughts about the changes of the restructuring of the name and the reasons behind doing that? What do you think?
I'm not I'm not too sure yet. I'm kind of in the middle on this one. I don't, I can understand the reasonings for doing it. At the same time, I feel like they're still so much in their infancy and expanding. I mean, it was only a couple of years ago that they brought Minnesota into the fold. They had 4 teams. Minnesota was 5. They brought in Toronto as the 6th team. And the other thing that's hard for me too is just kind of the way the players are split. I know they have to run themselves separately from the Players Association that split off a couple of years ago. But to me, that's always been hard because you have all of these good players kind of split up in between both sides. And not to get to it, it's a little apples and oranges, but I, as someone who has been a lifelong IndyCar fan too, seeing what happened with the split when they split off with the IRL and CART in the mid 90s and how that was really damaging for the sport. It's hard for me to kind of get behind, the 2 leagues in the first place. So I hope the rebranding maybe goes well for them. I'm not sure. I feel like maybe it's too much change too quickly in a way. I see what they're trying to do with taking women out of it, taking the gender out of it. But that's, I can see both sides of that too, because I ask a lot of women too when I interview them for stories and things that about if they're the first in something, kind of that pioneer, and how important it is. But then I always ask them about, well, isn't it going to be nice when we get to a point where we don't have to talk about that anymore? Right. But I don't know if we're there yet. So I wonder if this could cause confusion if you just hear, the new name and you're wondering
the PHF.
who's playing in it. The other thing I thought of too is coming from, I cover a lot of preps too and college, and everything is referred to as, it's boys hockey, girls hockey, men's hockey, women's hockey. So there's always that in there. And with professional, it's not like that, right? You have the NHL and you have the NBA. So, on the professional level, it's not like that. So I don't know. I hope I know there's been some turnover in the leadership, and I hope there's, they continue to build on the momentum. But for me, I feel like it's a little more wait and see. I hope they can continue to build and have success. And if this is part of that, and if this is what they see as a path to success, then I think it's a good idea. But I think I'm still a little leery of it, just at first.
Well, I think most people are. The changes are undeniable since this Tumminia took over. They have a board of governors finally, and league office personnel, which they did not have before. All the franchises are privately owned instead of by a federation. The league announced in April that they're doubling the salary cap to $300,000 for each team, doubling it from last year. Willie Miles, I always thought that the NWHL should be pushing for a similar arrangement to the WNBA. With the NHL never showing even the slightest inclination that a move to merge was ever coming, is this a wise move to seemingly stand on your own 2 skates?
Yeah. I love questions like these, especially when it's gender. We talked the last time. It's I have 9 older sisters, so gender. My sister Vivian, who they all refer to as V, and you didn't know if it was V was man or woman, but she got on the basketball court, she could hoop, and that's all that mattered. So for me, and I agree with what Heather's saying, is professionally. When you get to the professional ranks, it's just NBA, it's just NFL. It doesn't say men. You just know. So premier to me, it's just if you're, because we have a niche that's in the hockey right now, and I love the fact that they're going the way they're going. I think the WNBA is totally different than hockey. I like the fact that they're individually owned. I like the fact that they have investment groups. I like the fact that they're doubling the salaries. I like the fact that they're trying to stand on their own, because sometimes when you stand on your own and you do it by yourself, and I like the fact that they're doing it early. Either you try things early. You don't wait until you get established and then start trying to change things. I think you do those things in the beginning to get your footing, and then you move forward. Like I was known as Chilly Willie when I first started doing comedy. And then I signed with an agency and they changed it to C. Willie Miles.
Money well
and now
spent.
all of a sudden, I'm on.
You're America's
Every
everyday comedian. Yeah, now you're on. It's the same name.
Let's Play Every Day. That's how I never would have got here named Chili Willie. I would never be on your show.
You got to get yourself a new agency, Will. That's all I'm saying. All right, Kevin Gorg, who is the godmother of women's hockey in the state of Minnesota, and why is it Winnie Brown?
Yeah, I mean, Winnie Brodt, that whole Brodt family, right, comes to mind as the ones that really got this whole thing going. I think of Roseville hockey. I think of the Curtin sisters, Renee and Rhonda, and I think
Schmigel. Jenny Schmigel's dad was involved too.
Yeah, and so was Natalie Darwich's dad. I mean, he was a guy that was coaching down in the Egan area and started out, when high school hockey on the girls' side was just getting going. I had just made the switch from boys high school hockey to women's college hockey. And the bottom line is, I'm on the side of young girls all over the country, but specifically here in Minnesota, having the opportunity to play professionally. And I think the WNBA was brought up to me, and I think it was great by you guys to talk about that, because to me, that is the benchmark of where we want this to go. We want to see women's hockey on that type of stage. You can turn on ESPN and see the WNBA. You see those big crowds. We've seen it in small pockets here locally. With the Whitecaps before COVID, they were selling out Tria Rink night in, night out. Tickets were hard to come by. In fact, they were 1,200 people in there every single night. That it's just getting going, right? We're just getting started. But the end goal is to have something like the WNBA. That's the benchmark for what I see, the vision here at some point to have women's hockey on that type of stage.
Can't wait. Heather Rule, where can people find you, find your work?
So I am on all the social medias. Twitter and Instagram, I'm at HL Rule. And my website is just heatherrule.com. And then for the Twins work, it's at Twins on Twitter during the games.
Keep it rolling. Thank you very much for joining us. Willie Miles, what do you got going?
Hey, man, this weekend I'm heading down to Spencer, Iowa for the Clay County Fair. I'm there. I got 9 shows, 3 days. So I'm going to be hustling, bustling, buddy. And you can just find me on all the social media. It's under C. Willie Miles. Don't look for Chili Willie. You won't find it. That guy's hot.
KG, that's a tough act to follow. What do you got?
No C. Willie Gorg here. Just Gorgomatic with you, Timmy. It's going to be great. I'll be out at Canterbury for Festival of Champions later this afternoon. We go at 4:00 and $800,000 in purses for all our local horses and owners. We race again tomorrow, Thursday, and then next week is our final week at the track. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are the final 3 race days of the year. 5:00 post for those days, and then just grinding it out with you. Fantasy football, point spreads, props. What a fall we're going to have together, Tim.
Scorgomatic. Can't wait. That's where to leave the conversation for now. But coming up later this morning at 11, you can get the latest installment of another LPSN feature called Let's Play Super Draft. It's all about the latest entrant in the daily fantasy sports world. We're going to take you inside the app and show you actually how to play the games. Then this afternoon, we are going to be dropping It's Gorgomatic with the one and only Kevin Gorg. We focus today on long-term plays for the NFL and some prop bets around the National Football League, thanks to our panel. Thank you for joining us. And, of course, a big thanks to Northern Lids for sponsoring and providing my headwear. And remember, folks, let's play every day.
Thank you for engaging with Let's Play Every Day. You can find more episodes of Let's Play Every Day at www.letsplaysportsnetwork.com. Also on the Let's Play Sports Network Facebook page, Twitter account, YouTube channel, and everywhere you find your favorite podcasts. Please rate us if you liked the program, as that's how we find and build an audience and can bring you more great options from the Let's Play Sports Network. Thanks for joining us, and remember, let's play every day.